The CDC is once again considering updating its quarantine guidelines. The isolation period was shortened to 5 days for people who test positive but have no symptoms. Well, now the agency might recommend a negative test result before quarantine ends. 7 Action News reporter Darren Cunningham goes in depth tonight with a business owner and a doctor who are trying to navigate the updates.
The CDC guidelines are updated once in a while, but now there's a hashtag trending on social media poking fun, bringing a little humor to what's been a serious situation, implying the CDC's changes are arbitrary. But the evolving CDC guidelines are no laughing matter for Matthew McGrail, who's trying to run a business and manage employees.
They're a little confusing because things are so rapidly changing and so quickly changing.
He co-owns Cork and Gable Bar and Restaurant in Corktown.
Over the Christmas break, unfortunately, we had 3 staff members contract COVID or come into contact with people who had COVID.
Infected employees had to quarantine, coming just short of crippling New Year's Eve celebrations. At the start of the pandemic, that would have meant 14 days of self-isolation. Later, the CDC reduced that to 10 days for members of the general public. Now, the latest quarantine guideline calls for 5 days of isolation. At that point, if their symptoms are resolving, they are to wear a mask in public for the next 5 days, regardless of vaccination status.
It's good news for businesses because we can get people back to work quicker. However, again, we're trying to base ourselves off of what is going on and what we're being told.
The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services announced plans to adopt the new CDC quarantine guidelines. In an email to 7 Action News Friday, the state said in part, quote, while the CDC is working on additional information to clarify parts of their updated COVID-19 quarantine and isolation guidance, MDHHS strongly encourages all residents to continue to follow Michigan's current quarantine and isolation guidance to keep themselves and their family as safe as possible, end quote.
And the science is demonstrating that the majority of the transmission of the virus associated with COVID occurs early in the course of illness.
While some think the changes are arbitrary, Dr. Herbert Smitherman, a professor at Wayne State University School of Medicine and CEO of Health Centers Detroit, says the change is prompted by advanced knowledge of the virus. So he explains the CDC's reasoning for a shorter isolation period.
I want to emphasize the statement on average, generally about 1 to 2 days prior to the onset of symptoms is when you're most infectious or you can transmit easy, and 2 to 3 days after symptoms start.
If you are exposed to someone with COVID, but you are vaccinated and boosted, the guidelines call for masking for 10 days, but not isolation. For a link to all of the rules, including for the unvaccinated, just head to our website, WXYZ.com. In Detroit, Darren Cunningham, 7 Action News.
For a breakdown of what's included in the updated quarantine guidelines, visit our website at WXYZ.com.